It's the same old shop. The lift has been getting a workout. I've got a Honda Civic up there right now that needs some exhaust work. And then I also have this Ford Ranger. It's a 2008. Most of these came with the V6. This one has the 4-cylinder, 2.3. And plus it's two-wheel drive, so it's pretty much a base model. However, it doesn't have heat. I'm almost certain that the blend door actuator is shot. It's a common problem on these. It's not foolproof, but 9 times out of 10. Let's take a look at this exhaust. I got the parts ordered. It's going to be one of them videos. I just wanted to catch up and touch base because I've been absent for so long. Muffler shot. Nothing real major going on here. However, it's rusted out around this hanger. It looks like somebody tried repairing the flange at one time maybe. So we're just going to order up a new pipe and a new muffler and throw it on here. That won't take long. We got to start working on this Ford. It's a work truck. However, you got your blend door actuator is located on top of the box on this one. So on top of the heater box. So you pretty much open up the glove box and then there's these plastic tabs. You got to push in on each side. And you come up here and that's the blend door actuator. It's got the wires going to it. It's electric and that's usually the culprit. And most times when your heat's not working and your temperature gauge is in the norm and the vehicle's warmed up, most times it's this blend door actuator or a broken blend door. And it works in conjunction with your temperature control knob. As you turn, almost like a potentiometer, it moves that actuator to a known position. So essentially you just got to take and unplug it like so. And as you can see, you have 2 retainers in the front. Then there's 1 retainer in the back directly behind this plug, right in that general location. I believe it's an 8mm. We're going to start with that back one since that's the hardest one to get. And if you put your fingers back there, you'll feel it. And grab it just like so. Now we're going to zip out those 2 front retainers. Use a ratchet wrench here to finish off. Now it's going to have to pick up and out of the blend-in door. And then we're going to have to take note of the position of this actuator. Takes a little bit. Sometimes if you take a screwdriver and you put it in there, just to get it up and out of that door. You don't want to go forcing it too much. As you can see, there's just enough room. We know that this is the position of the blend door. You can see it's square in the back, round in the front. It only goes in one way. We're a little bit off. I gotta turn it counterclockwise just a little bit more. And how I'll achieve that is by plugging this one in. Having Miss Tammy turn the key on, or I can turn the key on. Try to eyeball this position. It should slide into the blend door down inside that hole. But you can't see from here, it's back there. Alright, as you can see, I got to start it in the back flat. Now we just got to push it down the rest of the way. Make sure you get them all started before you tighten one down. Okay, plugged in. I don't know if you can zoom in and watch the drive shaft of it. Right about there, you'll see that white piece. So even with it in its off position, as long as the key's on, it still works. And if you listen closely, you can hear it operating. Sometimes put a little penetrating oil on these hangers helps. Everything's too high in the air, Andy. Never thought I'd be saying that. Safety glasses. Alright. I guess what I could do for now is hang the new muffler, but I don't want to bolt it. Make sure everything mocks up here. That looks beautiful. I don't know, we'll try it. They're so rotted. There's one. 7/16, 6 point. Oh yeah. Beautiful.
All right.
Start here. These things are. It uses a crush style gasket. Seal everything before you even start the job. Pressing everything down evenly as possible. Working in a dungeon, I know it's dark. Okay, we got 2 new nuts. Got the new donut. Said they should tighten that to the shoulder head. Nice. One thing I do when I'm done with an exhaust system, or if I want to find a leak, is I just cap just slightly. Put a little back pressure on that exhaust. And you can see the muffler comes with a little weep hole in the back. And that's going to leak condensate out regardless. Everything seems good from what we did. Haven't seen any leaks. I'd say this one's good to go. Now we're back on this 2008 Ford Ranger. The heater's working great. Now we're going to raise it up. He said he has a small transmission leak out the tail housing of the transmission, so we're going to see if we can take care of that while it's here. In addition, he says, feels like one of the front calipers hangs up once in a while. So we'll take a look into that, and he has some pulsations. We might just do a front brake job on it. All right, see what he's referring to now. So the rear seal's leaking. pretty deeply grooved. And this side isn't. So evidently he does have a caliper or something hanging up. In addition, what I'm going to also look at, what I noticed when I was driving this truck, it doesn't seem like the back brakes are doing much of anything. So my suspicions are is that they're way out of adjustment. And I can tell by there's no resistance whatsoever. So in this case, the most logical approach I would try to take is lower it down, remove one wheel from the back, one wheel from the front, inspect the brake pads, rotors, and shoes, determine what it might need. I'm going to automatically assume we're going to be replacing the rear seal. On the transmission, always make sure you get the parts before you pull it apart, especially if the customer needs their vehicle. So let's do it to it. I didn't think you wanted to watch me take the wheel off. However, after taking a visual inspection, we're going to take and replace the rotors and the pads, call them up, they have them in stock. We're going to go with the higher end. There's a lot of rust buildup. It doesn't look like there was any grease applied to the slider to where the pads slide. I believe it's just the brake shoes it's hanging up on. So we're going to raise this up in the air, see if we can get behind there. Alright, we'll push it in that direction. Take this adjustment. Alright, just as a quick reference, this is the tab I was pushing on from the back side. And when I did that, it allowed me to turn this in that direction. That contracted, I guess you'd say, the brake shoes away from the drum. Under normal conditions, as the brake shoes wear and you're applying your brakes, the cable will pull up on this mechanism. It'll turn this. It's like a jack and screw. It'll tighten the shoes up against the drum, but it will not allow it to turn in the opposing direction. So to loosen it, you got to push on this from the opposing side and turn the adjuster the opposite direction. Usually if they get down around 3/30 seconds or 4/30 seconds of an inch, it's due to be replaced. However, these ones are well above that, so they'll pass with no problem. Okay, so at this point I'm just going to put the drum back on, and then I'll show you guys how I go about adjusting the brake shoes. I could take and clean this ridge off. However, I'm not going to worry about it too much at this time. We'll schedule an appointment and concentrate on this rear. And as you can see, it appears that all this oil is coming from this rear cover, and it's pretty rotted. You can see how it's flaking off. Reseal the differential cover, put all new brake shoes, hardware, and drums. All right. If you're just doing an inspection, there was a second plug up here. That's an inspection cover. You pull them off and you can inspect the shoes. However, I just wanted to take a complete inspection of the system as a whole. This is the correct tool for the job. And we know that the lock will only allow that adjuster to spin in one direction. And you'll actually hear it clicking. You're going to want to do this until the brake shoes just start touching the drum. Now, another good practice right now would be to go inside and cycle the emergency brake, or just pump the brakes a couple times to get the pads to center themselves, the shoes to center themselves, I should say. And at that point, adjust it one more time. Alright, next, if you come behind the caliper, you'll see you have your two retaining bolts. It appears to be either a 14mm or 9/16. We're going to take and zip them out. What I'm going to do first is take a screwdriver or pry bar, pry outwards on the caliper, which will compress the pistons slightly for us and allow it to remove much easier. Just like so. Okay, I'm going to be using a 14mm. I'm going to get both retainers broke loose. if you don't have a bungee cord or you have a limited amount of space, what really works good is if you take an old brake line or even a new piece of brake line, you have something left over, just bend a hook on each side in the opposite directions, and it works good. It's a nice rigid support, and it keeps you from letting the caliper hang on its own weight. But I also want to inspect every aspect of this caliper as I got it apart. We'll make sure it compresses freely. But what I see here so far is that there was no lube applied during the last brake job, so that's never good. This is a pretty neat little contraption, relatively easy to make. Ooh. That's kind of shady, huh? See that word in there. What's up, bud?
How are you?
Pretty good. Just slip out these pads. You always want to make sure these are clear, free. We'll take them apart and clean them. But next we're going to take and remove the two retaining bolts that retain this caliper bracket onto the spindle. It's a 15 millimeter. I'll just remove the bracket. Sometimes if you just take a pair of channel locks. Alright, now you got a counter pin. I'm just going to use a pair of cutting pliers. Put that out like so. Take it. I actually got this retainer, kind of a lock to lock your nut in place, because this is what sets the preload on the wheel bearings. As you can see, they're not very tight, so they would just back off. I want to find a clean place to lay this stuff down. I usually put everything inside the bearing cap until I get it cleaned up later. As far as the nut, the counter pin retainer. However, the bearings, I just usually set up a rag. Now we're going to have to knock out the rear seal in addition to the bearing. So what I do is take and temporarily reinstall the nut. So now we're going to use that nut and the rotor as a slide hammer. Pull it out like so, and then you're going to feel it hit the bearing. And you're going to turn it a couple spots, and then there she is. Remove your wheel seal and your bearing. Now we're going to clean this all down. Let's get some rags, because we're going to be repacking, re-cleaning, and with all fresh new grease. Tammy's going to throw on a set of gloves, clean these up. We have this basket that this little parchment basket. Let them soak a little bit, dissolve that grease. Meanwhile, I'm going to start ripping the other side apart. It's just going to repeat the same process. You do great work. I don't care what they say about you. What's nice about that hose is that it goes through a filter before it goes to the brush. So on your final scrub, just let it rinse out. Alright, so I got both front brake assemblies apart. Bearings are being cleaned, so I want to keep moving forward. I'm going to remove the drive shaft so we can replace that seal. However, I want to put it back in the same position. Okay, they appear to be a 12 millimeter. These are usually tight. Let's give that a pop like so. Okay, I got a drain pan placed on the floor just in case. There you go. Just like so. When I had the drive shaft in it, I checked for play and there wasn't really much play at all. This is going to move back and forth inside that bushing and inside that seal. You can see how this is nice and polished. It's actually the same material all the way back. However, this is the part that you're seeing that's either submerged in oil and or that bushing and the seal. The further that rear goes up, like as you start sagging down on your rear springs, this will get straighter, and as it gets straighter, this will go deeper into the tail housing of the transmission. And the increase of travel more than its normal ride height than it's used to, if any kind of corrosion took place on this outside before the seal in a normal ride height position, as soon as you load it up heavy enough, this goes in deeper than it normally rides, and this rust tears up the seal. I mean, I may be way off on that because there is a dust cover that's supposed to come out and protect it partially. I believe it still contributes to it. So I got the drive shaft all cleaned up. Like I said, I lightly polished it just in case the drive shaft slides in further than what I wanted to during installation. Now we're going to take and make sure the seal fits the shaft real good. Make sure it's clean and everything feels good. Okay, one thing I failed to mention, when you put the seal in, there's a little drain hole right at the bottom of the seal. You want to make sure that's at the bottom, and there's a notch in the seal to indicate the top. Yellow mark right here.
Yes.
And I need it lined up with that yellow mark, but not yet. Does it look like it's going to be lined up if you were to pick it up?
Pretty close, yeah.
Let me see. I don't want to slide that drive shaft in too far. Take your reinstall bolts. We got it all tight. Now we're going to top it up with gear oil, 80-90. There you go. I actually took almost a half of that quart. Just go a little bit past snug and you're fine. Sorry, the kids are being kids in the background. Tammy, thank you for cleaning these up.
You're welcome.
You don't have them repacked yet though. Man, she did a wonderful job. So clean them in the parts washer, rinse them out with water. Nice and clean. Okay, so grab your two bearings. We'll take them over to the air compressor. Nice chunk of grease there. Alright, so now you're going to take one of the bearings and you're going to not dip it in, but you're going to just like put a little bit to one side and you're going to force it into the bearing, like push. And you keep on doing that until it comes out the other side. It actually holds quite a bit of grease. Got our new rotors. I took and cleaned it out with brake cleaner, just in case there was any kind of machining, metal left inside and whatnot. So our freshly packed bearing. Seal. Put the seal in. As long as you go down even, everything should be fine. Okay, in addition to packing the bearings, put a decent amount of grease in the cavity between the bearings as well. And now this washer. We have this nut. Play evidently. Here all it plays up. And just a little bit more. Next, to lock your nut in place, install your cotter pin. Okay, put your cap on. Okay, so now for the caliper bracket. You want to take and you want to pull out both of these pins. You can see how that one was stuck in there. I had to break it loose with a pair of vice grips before. I don't know if you can see the buildup and whatnot on this lower pin. So what we're going to do is clean out all this old grease. In addition, these metal clips, they're your anti-rattle clips. We're going to take and remove them because we're going to be replacing them as well. You can take this backside. I'm going to hit it with a wire wheel. You want to be real careful in doing so because you don't want to tear the rubber up. Goof off. What I found, it smells almost like a lacquer thinner, but it's not, and it actually works pretty well for removing old grease. So I just spray it into the holes, and then I got a brush that I use for cleaning paint guns and whatnot. Okay, I'm gonna take and bring this over to the parts cleaner, clean it all, and then I'll be right back at you. Man, guys, it is super windy out there. However, we got everything all cleaned up. We're gonna reinstall these little rubber boots onto the pins.
I think the whole thing is going to fly away.
No. And we're going to take some brake and caliper grease. This is meant to apply on every aspect of the braking system. It's compatible with rubber, and it's also a high temp grease that'll help from breaking down with temperature, run out, along with water resistance. So, nice. Same thing here. Sorry guys, I thought that was recording. However, put the bracket on, put your 2 retaining bolts in, tighten them up, tight, tight. Now what you could do is apply a little grease onto the contact points. But what I find easier is to actually apply it to the brake pad itself. Wherever that metal is going to contact, you want to add grease. I'll show you where to put the rest later. Sometimes I have these pads, even though they're the better ones, when they come in, they're not quite shaped correctly. They're off. Like, the machining could have been done a little bit more to mold whatever it is. Turn it sideways. Get it in that clip. Slide it in just like so. Nice. Take one of the old brake pads. And I like using these welding style clamps. I'll take and we'll compress this caliper in. Seems like everything's moving relatively smooth, so I believe it was just in the floating and the pads being froze up. Like I mentioned before, every contact point you want to have some grease on it. And how that contact point will be right here. And here. Okay. Now we take it. Remove this. Reinstall our caliper. Just like so. And she feels good. Yeah. And then this side is complete. One more thing. Once you get it all together, everything's tight. This should be a free-flowing caliper at this point because the pistons are compressed. So you should be able to grab this and relatively easily move it back and forth. If you can't do that, then you got something binding, maybe a bent pin or something going on with your bracket. As you can imagine, when you pump your brakes, when you step on a brake, the piston comes out, it pushes against the inner pad. When it starts to contact the inside, it'll then push itself out and pull this front pad in to the rotor. So everything has to work together in order for your brakes to work correctly.